Hello, today we're going to be making some randomly scaling tileable textures. This system is based off the work of Your Sandbox. The difference between his system and mine will be that his randomness was created through rotation, while ours will be created through offsets. Now here is the default texture that I'll be using, and you'll find this linked below. To start off, we're going to need a material function, which I'm going to call mf_random_tile. We're going to spawn in a texture coordinate, and then we're going to add an add node. We'll need a function input. This will be of the type vector2, and we'll call this offset. And then we can multiply the result and add another function input. It'll be of the type scalar, and we'll call this scale UV. Then we'll run into a texture sample. This will throw an error. To fix this, we're going to need to create a texture object. And if we drag off this object, we can create a new input. This should default to texture 2D, and then we can name it. Now we'll need to set a texture into our texture object, and this should clear out all our errors. Now, backing up off the multiply, we're going to need another multiply, and then we're going to add an input function, and this one, we can just copy our scale UVs, and we can rename it to scale tile and then plug it in. Next, off the multiply, append a scalar and set its value to 1. We can spawn this by holding down the 1 key and just clicking. Then we can run this into a vector noise. And then mask it out. We're only going to need the red channel. And then when we round it out, we can throw the result into our output and quickly rename this to our noise mask, and the other one will be our RGB. I'm also going to set our sort priority. You can set them to any order you want. I'll be setting mine to have the texture at the top, followed by the UV second, the tiling third, and the offset fourth. Next, we're going to need another material function. We're going to call this one material function break tile. We're going to start off with a texture object, then we can set this to our default texture and run it into a new input function of the type texture2D, and we can call this one image as well. Then we can bring in our random tiling function and plug our image in. Then plug another input function of the type scalar into our scale UVs. We're also going to make sure that it's called scale UVs as well. Then we're going to need a scalar parameter. Just hold down 1 and click, and we're going to set this to 0.5. For the offset, we're just going to need to hold down 2 and create a vector 2 and then plug that one in here for now. Now, let's copy this 3 times. And we're going to be setting the scale to 1, 2, and 3 as it goes down. Then plug in our image and scale. I'm going to clean this up a bit, and then we can start lerping the random tiles together. The lerp will go, the A will be our RGB of the first random tile, the alpha will come from the same node, and the B will come from the second random tile's RGB, and then we can lerp the first lerp into a second one. The B will come from the third random tile, and the alpha will come from the second random tiles, and do this for a third one as well. Now, for the offset, we're going to multiply our scale UV by 2, then plug it into the B slot of a divide node, dividing 1 by it. Then off the scale UV, we're going to subtract 1. Then we can multiply our divided result by this. Then off the offset, we'll need an append node. For the first one, our multiplication will be going into the A slot. For the second one, it'll be going into both. And for the third one, it will just be going into the B slot. Then we're going to create a scalar, just set it to 0, and we're going to plug this into the last 2 slots. Now, for the last part of this function, start by renaming our first output to color. Then off the last lerp, we're going to add a subtract node. This should plug into the B slot, not the A slot, and the A value should be set to 1. And then we can output this as an alpha mask. Now we can create a material using this system. We're just going to drag in our break tile function, then plug in our color. Our image will be a texture object, and then our scale will just be a scalar parameter. Now I'll import a window texture and replace our default texture here with it. And then we can lerp in another texture using the alpha from our function as the alpha into the lerp. And then we can add another texture underneath it. And with that, we're done. So don't forget to like and subscribe.